Yes. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. This is the Board of Selectmen meeting of July 15th, 2025. President, myself, Bob Carlson, the first selectman. We also have Selectwoman Nicole Porter, Selectman Brett Mastriani, Admin Finance Officer Suzanne Thero. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, is there any public comment on non-agenda items? If it's not on the agenda, you're more than welcome to comment now, whether you're online or whether you're in-house. Any public comment? Seeing none, right? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes.
I will, can you hear me? I'll make them, does it sound?
I can hear you.
I know you can hear me. Really, really light. Who's online? Anybody? Nobody. I'll make them, yeah, that's better. I'll make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington's Board of Selectmen special meeting, virtual meeting only on May 9th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Via Zoom.
So moved.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? You're hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Approved 3-0.
And then I will make a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen minutes of the Town of North Stonington held on June 17th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. as written.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, approved 3-0. Thank you. Do we have any comments by either of the selectmen this evening? No, okay.
I was just,
I'm sorry.
Why don't you just keep the other one? We did that on purpose.
I just wanted to thank everybody. The fair was, in my opinion, a huge success, and we had great weather, and there was lots and lots of people. Friday night, we literally almost ran out of parking spots. But yeah, it was great. Just always a fun time.
Yeah, someone said to me, and it's the thing we all wait to come, and we all can't wait to release. It was weather-wise, it was probably the best I can remember. I've been working it pretty much for 10 years. It's the best weekend with no rain, nothing over 85 degrees. So hopefully they do well. Nope,
Yeah.
nothing major.
It was nice.
Thank you, and I appreciate both you and Brett working because I know you both worked at the fair. So thank you. That fair gets run a lot by volunteers. You can see them, all the volunteers working.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
Okay, first comments, I really don't have any. I think we'll move along at this point. We do have Alexis Khan here, and you're going to speak to us a little bit about a request for some money from the bottle bill, correct? All right, so you could use that microphone up there, if you don't mind.
Is it on now? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, good evening. Thanks for having us. So I am chair of the Sustainability Committee of North Stonington. And so we are looking to organize a kayak cleanup of the Pawcatuck River. And so we've been working with New England Science and Sailing, NES, in Stonington because they have both the kayaking equipment as well as the educators to be able to facilitate something of this nature, and also all of the liability insurance and all of the organizational know-how to run a cleanup of this type. So we're requesting $1,900 from the Bottle Bill Fund because that's what they would charge to lead a kayak cleanup. Basically, it's $1,553 is Ness's funds, and then we just are adding a little bit for incidental sandwiches and drinks so that we can do kind of a networking gathering at the end as a celebration of the fact that we've just done a lot of work. So their portion is $1,553 that we would pay to Ness. That includes them bringing 15 kayaks and providing 3 staff educators for 3 hours. So in terms of when we told them where the put in and the put out would be and giving them a sense for what we were looking for, they said that that would take approximately 3 hours, and that's why they came up with the budget that they did. So it would entail, we would have put in at Pottermill Dam, and then paddle to White Rock Road. And then what we would do is at each location when we're getting dropped off and when we're at the end of it, we would clean up on the shores itself, any trash, any debris that's there on land, and then start on the kayak trip. The kayak portion of it likely is going to be more educational in nature. It will depend on the individual kayaker's skill set in terms of whether we can, if there's debris on the shore, it might be a little bit difficult to maneuver over there depending on the flow of the river and such. So whether or not we're actually able to collect a lot of debris on the shores of the Pawcatuck River on the actual kayak trip is yet to be determined. So a lot of the cleanup would be at the put in and the final location, but it's Ness's educators are planning on talking a lot about kind of how the debris and trash ends up going through the waterways as sort of an educational opportunity to talk about why we, need better, trash mitigation and not having people just throw things away very willy-nilly, and to be mindful of that, especially about microplastics, brainstorm ways to keep our oceans clean and healthy. So they're facilitating not only the actual kayak equipment, but also this educational session. So the paddle is about a 4.25 mile journey. It's designated for ages 14 to adults. The one thing to note is that we are kind of capped on the number of participants that we'd be able to have join this. They only have a total of 15 individual kayaks, so they can't provide anything in excess of that. They will allow anybody who wants to join the effort bring their own kayak if they have their own. However, they can't really go past around 20 people because they don't feel comfortable with 50 people, and then they only have 3 educators. That's the sort of max. So we do need to keep it to be kind of a small group, but that does mean that there won't be any sort of unanticipated surcharges. It is what it is. It's going to be the 1553 for them because we can't add to the number of people. So the total that we're kind of requesting from the bottle bill is about $1,900.
Okay, are there any questions from Nicole about?
Where did I forget where we put that, what line item do we put
So
that in?
we don't, it's money that's revenue, it's in the revenue side of the budget. Right now, we probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40,000 in there.
Okay.
It's very precise on how we can spend that money.
Yep.
We did use about $10,000 a couple of years ago when we were doing the conversion at the transfer station. Yep. But it has to be somewhat trash related. I think we spent a little bit of money too when we did Earth Day cleanup to buy some bags and some gloves and things. But it's not an easy spend. So when someone comes up with a plan, which I think this is a good plan, and the money's just sitting there. So why not use it for what it was meant to be used for? So I think that I'm glad Alexis came. She was looking for a small donation. I think we can cover it because we have that money. I don't have people knocking our doors down asking for it. So I think it would be it's a good opportunity, a nice event. I think that's hopefully there's some educated paddlers. There's not too many newbies because I just paddled that river last week. So there is a couple of small rapid areas. There's also some low areas where you might have to get stuck. So you have to get unstuck. I did not get stuck, but one of our members did. There's a few portions you can paddle into. But I think overall it's a great experience, and I think it's nice to have a group go down and kind of take care. As last I knew, there was no trees across the river when I did, so at least you won't have that issue. So you don't have to pull out and put back in. You probably put in that post office lane, not Potter Hill.
Okay.
Potter Hill's right next to it, but there's a waterfall there.
Okay.
Right next to it is, right next to it, from here to the parking lot, is Post Office Lane. And it's a nice grass area with a tree and shade, and it's a really nice place to congregate. And there's parking there and so on. So, and then where you come out, White Rock makes sense too. It's a decent sized area. So good. Well,
Did you see any trash?
huh?
Did you see any trash?
We picked up whatever. It wasn't, I mean, there's always trash, right? And it is tough to pick it up on the shoreline because unless you're good at kayaking, you could easily get turned around. So, but I think it's a great effort and both educational and actually picking up things. So, yeah, I think it's great. I'm all for it, and we'll see what the other selectmen say as far as this opportunity. Do you have anything else to add, or?
So we've talked about this one previously as well. I'm in favor of it. I think it's proper use of the funds, and I'd make a motion to approve the ask for 1,900.
Yep. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
How will you advertise?
So we were going to try to do it kind of word of mouth first, just in terms of, maybe something with the Wheeler Library, and the Conservation Commission is aware of the fact that we're doing this. I know Bill is very involved in the kayak trail system. So he had already shared the concept with the Conservation Commission and had some people who would be looking to participate. We're going to see how many we can get, sort of people to sign up based on just that initial word of mouth, because our concern now is if we broadcast it too much, then if we get a flood of people who are interested, I mean, then we get challenged by the cap of 15 kayaks. And then as a next step, if there aren't enough people who have joined, sort of said that they were going to attend, to put it out to the local papers as this is going on an event, can you contact us to find out more. That was kind of the plan, but we'll take any suggestions. But we were kind of nervous about too many people more the merrier to a certain extent, but we just don't want to have like 50 people be like, oh, we're interested in that.
So
Turn away.
on that note, a little bit, I would suggest that you do put it out publicly.
Okay.
And this is just my suggestion, and take the first amount of people that respond, because it is town funds. So I'd hate for it to look like we're only targeting one group of people over another.
Okay.
So, and whenever you put that out, that's up to you guys, but you might just want to come up with a plan where it feels like it's inclusive of everybody that's a resident of the town, compared to, I just don't want it to come back and say, hey, you guys paid for this out of town funds, but it's only for this group over here.
Right.
That's
And
would
the
be
other
my
thing is,
concern.
I think the way that we could position it too, maybe not as many people would be interested in this, but any number of people can join us for the shore cleanup, because as long as they don't kayak.
So that's a great opportunity, I think, for others to be involved at. And might make it a little larger event for you for the cleanup purposes, and limit that to the kayaking to what you can manage, right?
Okay, no, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, good idea, Brett. Thank you. What's the date?
So we're going back and forth a number of different iterations of dates, because we wanted to make sure that this was approved before we set something, and then if it wasn't going forward, we didn't want to get it out there. So the latest was we were contemplating Sunday, August 17th. We're hoping that there's enough water. It's been raining quite a bit, and so we might have to push it to September based on water, like rainfall. If it's too dry, obviously that won't be an option, but in terms of availability of nests and such, we are thinking that's the date that they currently have available for us.
Okay, the process is, I would request a check be cut. Usually cut checks and they're ready to be signed out by Friday. The treasurer and the two selectmen sign them, usually ready for the following Monday. So I just want to make sure we have enough time to go through that process, that's all.
And I should have mentioned this in the first place, but for those who aren't familiar with NEST, they're a 501c3, so it is going to a nonprofit. It's not a for-profit organization. So
who do I make the check out to? Or do I just make it out to the North Stonington what, sustainable committee?
Oh, I think the check would be made out to Nest directly because could it be for, yeah. we don't have
What's
any.
going to Nest and then what's going to the sandwiches. Maybe that's a reimbursement or whatever you want to do, or we're cutting a check to wherever you're getting the sandwiches, but I think we'd have to do 2 separate checks.
Right, can you give me shoot me an email with the breakdown?
Sure.
Good. Okay, and we'll just attach the checks, but we can get them for the same thing.
Because we don't have any kind of official bank account or anything for the facility committee.
Because they're a town committe, so
Right.
they would fall under our checks anyway.
Okay, you're not in the budget?
Not in the budget.
I thought you were. Okay, so just give me that email and I'll make copies and attach the email to the checks and we'll go from there. Right, so we haven't voted yet, I don't think. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Okay, 4-0, we're good to go.
Thank you.
All right. All right, next, 8-24 review property on Starlight Lane. So I asked Susan Cullen to come in on this. This has been floating around, as Brett mentioned earlier, 6 to 8 years. It's a gentleman that lives on Starlight Lane that wants to buy the adjoining piece of property that originally was part of Kingswood, and it was not noted as a lot. It was noted as a part of the road system. There was a cul-de-sac drawn in originally that never took place. He's asked to buy it. I've gone through his attorney and let him know that there's no guarantees. I mean, he can do the surveying, which he's done, the legwork, because the town wasn't going to pay for that. And after he does all that, it goes through an 8-24 review and goes to the back to the selectmen. Eventually has to go to a town meeting. After all, there's no guarantee that he would be the one that would get the land because we would have to advertise it. Most likely he would because he's the abutting neighbor, but it's not a guarantee, and I told him I couldn't guarantee that. So we just can't sell land to an individual in town land, that is. So anyway, so can you tell us a little bit about what you know about this? I know you've talked back and forth with the attorney.
Can I just ask a quick question before we dive more into it? Just so I know we voted on this a few months ago to approve it, but then there was something that there wasn't a lot numbers or something that it's coming back. So can you just explain why we're revoting?
So we just wanted to, so we thought when we voted on it, I think it was a little more vague than it probably should have been. We voted for it back maybe 6 or 7 months ago.
Yeah.
I think because there's no lot number attached, and at the time the property wasn't surveyed. Now, since then it has been surveyed, so that doesn't have a lot number, but at least we have a surveyed map. So I think it makes it a little more precise on what we're actually asking the board, Planning and Zoning Commission to either approve or deny. So that's one reason it's come back, is I think it's a more precise ask. That's all. I mean, we could live with the 8-24 review we did months ago, but I just think it's a little bit cleaner to do it this way.
Okay, for anyone out in the public who maybe wasn't at that meeting or doesn't know the history of how this began, let me just, kind of circle back to how this began. So an 824 referral has to do with municipal agencies and legislative bodies locating, accepting, abandoning, widening, narrowing streets, parkways, public ways, locating, relocating, approving, improving, acquiring land, abandoning land, selling land, leasing land. So basically anything that the town needs to do to either acquire or release. And it can be for parkland, it can be for utilities, it can be for roads, for light, power, transit. So there are lots of reasons to have an 824 referral. And then that referral itself actually refers to the number in the state statute. So that's where that number comes from. And it gets pushed back over to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who will then review it against their long-term plan of conservation and development. And so what they'll be looking for, is it consistent with that plan? Is it consistent? Is it inconsistent? For what reasons would it be? Or is it not spoken to at all? So they will do that. If you send this tonight to over to the Planning and Zoning Commission, they'll be able to do that in August. Now, the lot in question, this request came from Mr. Townsend, who's at the very end of Starlight Lane. So Starlight and Old Colony, there's sort of a curve that goes around. And in the back side of the curve, so this is it's a very sketchy Xerox because it's such an old subdivision. So the lot layout of Kingswood Park, it dates from April 11th, 1964. And most of the homes in that section were built in 1964. And then just after that, zoning actually came into play in North Stonington on May 21st. So you can see, and I can pass this around. So this is Mr. Townsend here at the end of Starlight Lane. And there is another adjacent neighbor just at the beginning of Old Colony. Now the nearest neighbor behind them is probably here, which is, there's a pool and a home right there. These are all single family homes. And then just for sort of to give you a sense of scale, this home was built in 1988. And most of the ones in this area were built in the late 80s, early 90s. And that's almost 400 feet away from the existing subdivision, just so you have an idea of what's behind it. There's a large number of wetlands as well. My guess would be that that cul-de-sac, that temporary cul-de-sac that was on the original layout was probably meant so that the large parcel, which at the time was empty, if it was going to be divided up sort of in the same manner or in a smaller lots as if it was another Kingswood, if there was another phase, then that cul-de-sac could have, that temporary cul-de-sac, which is laid out on the plan, could have pushed the road through. So there is room there, but now that it's been developed behind it, and now that wetlands, you know, in 1963, the state of what could be done in those wetlands is very different than what it can be done in 2025. So it's not likely that anything would really develop back there, and those rear lots have already been established. So it's not as if there would be another phase for that road to go through. So there isn't a real need for that road to go through. So we've asked Attorney Iacocca, who represents the Townsends, we made sure he put in writing that we could not guarantee that even if we did the referral, put this to town meeting, went through all the appropriate steps, that we would be able to just literally sign it over to Mr. Townsend or, you know, appraise it and say, this is the price. That's not the way that it works with municipal land and in acquisition or to dispose of it. So we asked them, because this is their request, to put together the exhibits which would be used. So we asked them to survey, and they also gave us the descriptions which would go into those deeds. And they gave us two different sort of sets of scenarios. One goes all the way to the neighbor's edge of the property, goes all the way in the back of this property. This is the property here that had the pool that was right on the property line. And so there is no, you'll notice there's no frontage here. So this doesn't become another building lot. It doesn't become, it's literally just excess land that could be attached to most likely any of the three neighbors. It would vary. I mean, I don't know what anyone else would do with it, really. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. But there is no frontage there along the road. So it's not as if this becomes another building lot. The other possibility that they gave actually still preserves, and they gave us the description for that as well, still preserves that curve of the original cul-de-sac that's off that original subdivision map from 1963. And so we had them survey it and show what that would look like as well. And the off chance that we were willing to give him, or, you know, or whoever, some of the land, but not necessarily impact that temporary cul-de-sac in case we wanted to keep it for some other purpose. So they've prepared all that. Kingswood is in the R40 zone. The R40 zone came into play after Kingswood was established. So it is the closest zone that we have in modern time that would fit the Kingswood subdivision. And there are really only two of that type of subdivisions in North Stonington. So what we'll do now, if you would like, is to go forward at the Planning Commission, and they will decide, is this consistent with the comprehensive plan? Do they see any difficulties with this? And I'll just give you an example. I don't see this as being a problem from this standpoint, but for fire protection, if this was closing off like a secondary exit that allowed the fire department to get into Kingswood, then we would care about that. Then it would be inconsistent with that. That's not the case in this scenario, but just to give you an example of one of the types of things that they might review or look at. So I do have extra copies of almost everything I showed you if you're interested in looking at it a little further, or if you'd like it just for your own notes, let me know. I'll be happy to leave it off.
So Sue, if this gets approved by the Board of Selectmen this evening for the second time, all you need from me is the written request, correct? Because you have all the documentation that you need at this point.
I do. I have all the documentation from the attorney, which talks about the descriptions. I have the surveys. I also have in writing from him the fact that he realizes that they've done all of this sort of at risk, that the town won't be paying for these things, that we wouldn't be paying for that survey work, that those attorney fees, and that this is, they're welcome to do that work and make the request, but we can't, make a commitment to them. We still have to go through our procedures.
Since he gave us two options, do we have to actually have two requests? Do we have to handle these properties differently?
I think it would make sense if you did. And the reason I say that is if you got through the next step of the process and the Planning Commission decided that they really did have a preference for one reason or another, it would be much simpler for them to vote down one of them and vote up the other. And it just would make a cleaner bit.
Okay. Questions?
Are all of the abutting neighbors aware of Mr. Townsend's request at this point?
I would say no, unless they were watching your meeting tonight or watching the meeting where you discussed it previously, because it hasn't been really advertised in any way. When you go to the Planning Commission, it'll be in, in their agendas and so forth. It's sort of a funny one because it's not like a zoning board of appeals application where you tell the 500 people in a circle around you about it. I guess we could go out of our way to try to contact the adjacent neighbors, and maybe that would be an appropriate thing to do. But in some ways, the law doesn't really do what they do at ZBA, where you have to sort of, do this big circle of people around it.
I would be in favor of just transparency and letting them know whether or not legally we're able to. Do we have, and we probably don't have any right to know, but has Mr. Townsend been forthcoming with what he wants to do with the property? Is it literally just to provide a buffer?
I know in my previous discussions when they brought it up originally, I don't know if that's changed or you might have more information recently, but it was so they could put a pool in at one point. They talked about putting a pool in, but they didn't have enough space on the side to do that because of the property lines. So
in casual conversation with the attorney, that was basically what they were still speaking about. We certainly can't hold them to that in a manner, but it would make sense. Most of the lots in Kingswood are fairly small. And although there are pools there, they're smaller pools. It may be that they, want a larger pool or an in-ground pool, or it also might be that how their home is placed on the lot, it makes it so that you can't have a pool on that lot.
yeah, I believe that's what it was, the angle of their house or
Yeah,
something like that.
it is definitely a different lot size
And we would have to,
shape.
of course, mark it in our own records for the future that it was not a building lot, that it was literally just excess land added, and there is no frontage.
Right.
So it's not as if he could absorb this and then somehow split the lot, because he's not adding to the frontage. There wouldn't be.
Right. So I guess, would he be able to just add this permanently to his lot size?
Yes, he would be able to file a new deed to incorporate both of the lots together, as if you were just doing a merger of two side-by-side.
So if he ever resold, then he would sell them both together.
He would
is
sell
what the
them
plan.
together.
So I don't have a problem with it because I voted for it the first time. So the new detail is fine. But to be clear, do we have a town like parcel number or anything? So we don't have lot numbers, but as a town-owned property, do we list them anywhere to be clear to say, hey, town parcel number,
The
whatever?
hard part is this is actually a part of a paper street that was never accepted into the system. It's from a subdivision that predates our regulations.
Okay, so I get,
So although we have a description that we can pass, and we made them actually put that together with their surveyor, so we would have, it's a meets and bounds description, so to speak. It's not a, Kingswood lot 15, because it wasn't a lot.
right,
as
I didn't
part
know
of
if the
the
town, we called any of our properties by a certain name, but that's mostly for my motion. So how are we declaring that for our motion
Can you,
to say?
I mean, we can still discuss after you make a motion, but I
Sure.
had, so the process is we'll approve to send to P and Z, then they take care of it from there. And then somehow we come up with a price if it's all approved. And then how is that advertised that it's now for sale?
So when it comes back to you, and you'll have to go to town meeting to dispose of land, so that'll have to be voted on. And we can pretty easily give you a price either through an appraisal or through our assessments, that have been, fairly recent. So we can also inflate the assessment by the appropriate percentage. And that's also probably a pretty appropriate way to do it without spending a lot of money, because you're not going above the threshold by state law that would actually make you go out and get a certified appraisal. But if you wanted one, we could also get one. And then you could put together a bid, just as if you were doing a bid for a piece of equipment, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if it's out there and
Mhm.
somebody, how do we determine if there are multiple bids on the parcel?
Mhm.
How do
So-
we decide?
I would think we do it just like we've done other properties in town in the past where you
Where
put
the highest bidder?
the highest bidder.
Did that with the schoolhouse in Foxborough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
Clark's Falls, I think there was one that we did and they picked the dollar over the
the last. bid.
$30,000 based on what they were doing with it, but I think there's some room for discussion in that.
And then if the highest bidder is somebody other than the, Mr. Townsend, and I think that you've talked a little bit about this, but what could they do with the property really, aside from if it's somebody other than the homeowner that's asking for that
If it's
adjacent
not one
land?
of the adjacent homeowners, I mean, they can still own an excess piece of land, and that's fine. You're never going to be able to build on it. We would have it labeled in the land records and in the assessment records that it's not a buildable piece of
Okay.
land. And those pieces of land do exist within the town. And, some people want land for different purposes too. Some people, just like to hold more land in their name. Some people like to, would you like to have, what if you wanted to have a garden there? Or what if you wanted to, cut down trees and, haul some wood out for your own wood stove and you live down the street? None of those things are inappropriate things. You can do that. We would just have to be very careful in how we label it to make sure that it didn't inadvertently become a building lot, because there really is no frontage for this lot to use.
Any other questions? Okay. There was, again, if it's approved, I'll, next week or so, let up. When's your next meeting or this one?
In August, I did write down the August meeting date, I'm sorry.
Oh, so I think it's August 8th or something. John, do you know when it is? Next P and Z
I
meeting?
think the calendar. Yeah. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
well, anyway, I
Bring my phone up to the podium.
so I have plenty of time and I'll be at that meeting too.
Yeah,
You meet
sure.
typically one on a Thursday
It's a Thursday
at
evening
7 o'clock.
at 7.
Okay.
So while John's looking that up,
Mhm.
how should we refer to this parcel?
So I think I would say the the parcel that was previously designated as the temporary cul-de-sac at the end of Starlight Lane in the Kingswood Park subdivision from 1963.
You are so making that motion.
And that's probably the best I can do in terms of giving you enough words to refer to this without.
Okay, can we slow
reading the
that down?
entire
Just, I started writing and then I lost
So,
track.
I would say the outlined temporary cul-de-sac at the end of Starlight Lane from the Kingswood subdivision,
Hold on.
sorry, dated 1963. Because it's not a building lot, it's much more complicated.
We can't just say the town's property at the end
No,
of Starlight Lane. Okay,
no,
so
it's
the
not
outline
really.
temporary cul-de-sac at the end of Starlight Lane.
In the Kingswood subdivision from 1963. Because I think if I had all those things, I could find it on a map. I think that's just
1973,
1960.
63, okay. But then we want two motions, correct? So I'll
Yes,
start with,
I would have two motions, and one would be for the parcel to maintain the temporary cul-de-sac, and then the other one to encompass the temporary cul-de-sac.
was that second one again?
To encompass the temporary cul-de-sac, which would mean that that temporary cul-de-sac would no longer exist at all.
Okay, so I'll make the first one.
I can give you exhibits.
That the town move forward to an 824 review to planning and zoning, the parcel that's the outline temporary cul-de-sac at the end of Starlight in the Kingswood subdivision of 1963. And for that parcel to maintain temporary cul-de-sac.
I'll second that. Good, okay. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. All right, I'll make another motion to send to 824 review the parcel, the outline temporary cul-de-sac at the end of Starlight in the Kingswood subdivision, 1963, and for the parcel to encompass the temporary cul-de-sac.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll come to you
I'll
next meeting.
have all these in my office. if anyone needs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks for coming tonight. August 14th? Okay. Alrighty, next, number 9, Code of Ethics discussion. So I've done quite a bit of research on this since the last meeting when this was widely discussed. In my research, I found about 10 towns in Connecticut that had a social media policy. I did not see any town that the social media policy was also part of their code of ethics. It was a standalone policy, so it was not in their code of ethics. Most codes of ethics are geared towards financial gain. This is something totally different. Now, I know that Brett mentioned that Mike Orgo when he was in office, because there was a couple of instances when we first started doing online meetings to try to clean that up, with like not drinking alcohol, vulgarity, and that kind of stuff. But we wanted to get, because of an incident recently, we wanted to get a little more descriptive. So what I did was, and this doesn't have to be voted on tonight, but I wanted to start somewhere. So I took the social media policy of these 8 or 9 towns and I tried to take the best content from each one, again, to start. I don't have any problem with what I came up with except for one thing. It's the last piece, which is discipline. And I'm really torn on how do you discipline someone who's violated this when you have town employees, appointed members to boards and commissions, and then elected officials. They actually all get treated a different way. Now, obviously, town employees, if someone town employee does not do something that's the town thinks is in violation of the code of the employee handbook, something the town does not think it was the right thing to do. We have steps of everything from written warnings, verbal warnings, all the way to termination. On an appointed board, we also have the ability, because all the appointed boards are appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So we can then pull off a person off a board and say, you're no longer appointed because you violated the social media policy. Those two areas I have no problem with. The third one I do, and it's elected officials, and it's very vague. Even when, I remember 3.5 years ago when we first got elected, and there was some question whether elected officials need to sign the employee handbook. And I felt that if you filled out a W-4 and you're being taxed, you're an employee. However, the state doesn't always see it that way. It's very murky when you call the state. They're saying, sometimes you find out that people know you're getting a paycheck, like you two selectmen, like I am, like the town treasurer is. If you're an elected official, you can be paid, but you're still treated as an elected official. Other people say, no, if you're drawing a paycheck and you're getting taxed and the federal government sees you as an employee, then you should be treated as an employee. So my problem with that is we can't fire an elected official. We've had elected officials before, not in this case, but in a case where they don't come to meetings. They just never show up. They show up to the first meeting and never see them again. Trying to get that person off the board is almost impossible. I've had to send out letters that I've typed myself with their name on it. Everyone got the signature in a self-addressed envelope as they come back to me. All I have to do is sign and say, yes, I resign, to get people to resign from boards. It is not easy. If they just want to stay on it, they can just stay on it until the next election cycle. That's when they get off, because then we vote them out. So that's the part I'm having trouble with. But if you want to look at so the introduction basically is the town of North Stonington, in this case the town, depends upon an environment of tolerance and respect for the achievement of its goals and serving the citizens of the town. Of all the introductions I read, that was the one that was short, concise, and I think hit the mark. The purpose of this policy is to provide expectations and guidelines to town employees, appointed board, commission, and committee members, as well as elected officials, that their use of social media should conform to the values set forth in this policy. And is the policy itself. Town officials and employees should refrain from posting to the town's website or non-town sponsored social media pages, as well as statements made during hybrid and recorded public meetings that may contain the following. 1, profanity, discriminatory language, inappropriate language. 2, content that is deemed to not be in the best interest of the town. 3, religious statements, including comments that endorse or oppose any type of religious opinions and activities. 4, comments that promote, foster, or perpetuate discrimination based on creed, color, age, religion, gender, marital status, status regarding public assistance, national origin, physical or mental disability, or sexual orientation. 5, comments that include vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks, and unsupported accusations. 6, content that promotes violence. 7, obscene or sexual content, links to obscene or sexual content posts, or links concerning illegal activity or encouragement of illegal activity. 8, information that may tend to compromise the safety or security of the public or public systems. 9, content that is confidential, contains personal information, and not public under the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act. That's pretty much inclusive. Where we are with this, because I just wrote this myself, we have not talked about it. I'm willing to then have you as selectmen look at this, add, subtract, give me some guidance on how we do D, which is the discipline piece. We can discuss it this evening. Thoughts?
Guess I'll start a little bit. So before we start, I think we have to be clear that there is a social media policy. It's a 3-page policy. It's on our town website. It's from 2020. So I think we have to incorporate this into that policy if that's what we're doing, but I think we need to review that policy as well. Now that one pretty much talks about who's allowed to have a social media page, if it references the town. If it's a board or commission, it's got to get approval by the first selectman. There's a bunch that goes in. Like I said, it's 3 pages. And I remember it from when we started our EDC page. We had to make sure it
Does
went
it
into play.
reference just town employees, though?
So no, it just references who has access, how it works. It has nothing to do with some of the stuff in here. So that's why I think we need to look at that and potentially put some of this in there, because it is called our
So
social media
like make this
policy.
a subset of that
Yes.
current policy.
The second part is elected officials aren't town employees, whether you get paid or not. You're a municipal official. There's a big difference. So yes, we can't discipline really municipal officials. You can't recall elections in Connecticut don't happen. You can't sanction anyone. It's the way the state law is written on that. And then I agree we should come up with something, but I also think we need obviously an attorney to look at it at one point, because I worry about us opening ourselves up to liability because there is so much open to interpretation in this list. I mean, pretty much every bullet point is open to interpretation. So I do worry about it. And I think this is going to be a work in progress, but I do understand the premise, and I do think we should move towards something, but we just have to do it right.
And that may be why I only could find 9 towns that had one.
Right.
So, and I'll be honest with you, the towns I did find, they were more geared towards the town social media page. So we have a town social media page. The only ones that use it, myself, Jen, and Suzanne. Nobody else uses it. Where these towns have opened up to boards and commissions and said basically, hey, if the assessor wants it, if the EDC wants to use it, planning zone wants to use it, they can. However, if they violate any of these rules, that the penalty for them is they will no longer be able to use the social media. We don't do that in town. Nobody uses that except for, again, Jen usually does the posting, and the content's usually for myself or Susan. So that's how almost all these policies were geared towards that. But since we don't seem to have that problem, I don't have boards and commissions asking to post on our town page. And if they did, they have to come through me and I have to approve them anyway. So we monitor that pretty closely.
And then I guess it comes down to who says what is deemed to as inappropriate language, or comments that, well, this one I found a little odd. Religious statements, including comments that endorse or oppose any type of religious opinions or activities. So what does that mean if I'm on a non-town website and I say Merry Christmas? I'm just making examples. Anything that promotes any kind of religion, now I'm opening myself up to discipline.
I think your point to have an attorney look at it makes sense. But I think that if you had a policy and you let everyone that's under this, which would be the employees, the appointed officials, and elected officials, nobody have one, and they all got a copy of it, I would think if nothing else, would probably self-monitor.
Yeah.
Because now people know that we're watching it. We have a policy and watch it. So do we determine if someone's cross the line? Maybe that's the selectman's job to hear that what someone came in with a complaint. We determine whether we feel it was a violation or not. But there's no other board to do this.
Right.
So
no, and I agree. And I do think to start, we definitely need one for employees and how they handle themselves on some of the social media. I think there's some new federal law too that we should look into that maybe passed last year about training of employees on social media policies. But there is a lot wrapped up in, like I said, I can't agree more that we should come up with some guidance. How far that goes or what we can do is up for discussion.
So we're a town, and I think that as that first statement says, it depends upon an environment of tolerance and respect. That's the way we treat each other. It's the way board members treat other board members. That's the way my employees in town treat other employees. That's the way it should be. And I don't see a lot of people stepping, and violating this policy. However, I think it's just good to have something so we know it's there. Everyone knows it's there, and we can use it as a guide. It may be a deterrent. Sue, tomorrow, if you can find that other policy, if you know where it is,
I can
second drive.
email it to you. Did you find it already? Okay.
Great. So I guess tonight then what we'll say is, and I'll open up to public comment in a minute. What I'll say is that we know there's a need. We just got to fine tune it, make sure we cross our T's, dot our I's, and we all, I think, are coming from the same places. We don't want to tolerate people who don't adhere to this, how we want the town to be.
So I have a couple of comments before we open it up to the public. So I distinctly remember, but I could not find my employee handbook. So I think it's, yes, so A, we're paid. B, I remember I had to sign my handbook and hand in that last page. There was something in there with the social media policy. I'm almost positive was in there, as well as I think the code of ethics. So I think the social media policy that you're referencing, I almost think that the behavior we're trying to prevent almost needs to be in the code of ethics. And I agree with you. The current code of ethics really talks more about financial, but I'm almost wondering if we need to build in something into the code of ethics rather than have it be a social media policy. So the reason I'm saying that is, let's just say that we're all at the polls one election, as we all have been in the past. And there are either really inappropriate comments or activities by somebody either running for office. I want that behavior to be able to be considered and not just stick to something that somebody's posted something on social media. So it almost needs to be, I think, in the code of ethics. So that's my comment on that. I do think on it is rather unfortunate, but also definitely today's day and age that an elected official, that there is no recourse. And we know that from state and national politics. But I think that we need something in there stronger than they may be called out at a Board of Selectmen meeting and recorded. I would almost propose that there be something in there that said they could be that they could be asked to step down from their office. I think that we, as the Board of Selectmen or any Board of Selectmen, have the right to say your behavior, and I'm speaking in general, I'm not speaking about anything that has happened in the past, but your behavior is so egregious that we believe you should step down. And I understand that we can't force somebody to step down, and people have voted that person in, and we don't necessarily have a recourse. But I do suggest that we put something in there other than just you could be called out which.
So that was just a throwaway to.
No, totally. I think that I love the start. I completely agree. We have to have the town attorney look at it. And I agree with Brett that as you look at all those numbers 1 through 9, you could come up, aside from some of them that are quite obvious regarding obscene and sexual content, things like that. But you could make some of them are just difficult, like the religious one. I agree. Like if I'm the pastor at one of our local churches and I want to advertise a pride event coming that weekend, does that open up something where somebody could be? So I do think that we need the town attorney to kind of take a look at some of these.
On that note, I think you could say those things regarding the town's social media page, the official town social media page. I do think you can put most of those things as written in that. But as far as non-town sponsored social media page, I don't think you can. But
Yeah.
I do agree with you that maybe it should go in a code of ethics about just our behavior in general.
Yeah.
To try to remain decorum, like at meetings, wherever it might be.
Yep.
So I maybe we're talking about 2 separate little items here, but overall, I think
So I think
I'm on board.
here's what I think, that we could have handled this two ways. And the first way, we never handle it because that's not who we are. We could have handled it, let's throw something out there. We know there's some people upset about something that happened a few weeks ago. Let's throw a policy out there. We'll approve it tonight, move on. We're not doing that. What we're saying is we're going to do it right. We're going to have it all inclusive. We're going to have it checked out by an attorney. We want to make sure we do it right. Whether it goes in the code of ethics or not, we have to look at that. As I said, many of the other policies and the other things are in the code of ethics. So I don't know why that is. And there may be a reason. And again, all the codes of ethics that I saw were all financial.
Yeah, no,
financial
I
gain.
agree,
So,
definitely.
no matter where it ends up, as long as we have it and we know that all the people that it applies to know about it, I think that's we just have to get the document finished for us. So we'll look at what was done during when Mike was the first time and see what we came up with back then. And that was a direct link to maybe something that was said at a meeting online. And I know there was also like people picturing online because nobody knew how to do Zoom back then. It was like it was only one of us, right? So we knew what was the proper etiquette to be on a Zoom meeting. As far as your example about at a election though, if we get someone really close but they're not in office, they're just running and they do something they say something, do something, they don't fall into any of these categories.
No, but if they're rerunning,
If they're rerunning, it's different.
yeah.
But if they're just a candidate, they don't.
No,
fall in.
I agree. I agree. There's not much. The other thing that I just wrote down that so the North Stonington unfiltered page, right, is they have moderators and admins, correct?
Mhm.
And there are rules to that. We unfortunately, as the Board of Selectmen, don't have any control. It was a Facebook page that was created to allow people to express their opinions that probably were not something like, hey, we want to know when, the Memorial Day parade is, right? That's where it all started, that they wanted to give people a forum that others who just really wanted to find out what was going on in town and suggest a landscaper and things like that. But they do have moderators and admins, and I don't know who they are. I don't know who the admins are, but I think, and frankly, I don't know how you could even possibly, because I do know it was retracted and it was taken down after a period of time. But how do those admins monitor those pages? And if somebody is putting out potentially threatening or offensive or something that could incite violence, they have that recourse, right? To ban, either ban somebody from the page or to make them take it down.
Yeah, they totally do. And there are certain Facebook or social media rules that you can't do that. If someone reports, it automatically comes down. But you're right, that page, for instance, was started because the town group page started getting too political.
Yep.
So they said, hey, everybody, please move over to this page if you want to talk anything political. And that's where it originally started. And then it got a little more open from there.
It's a slippery slope too because of the First Amendment, right? So,
Yeah, no, I understand.
But I think it's important to keep this on the agenda and keep tweaking and moving it forward.
agreed. It'll be on the agenda again for August 2nd, whenever our next meeting.
So I
August
think
5th.
next steps are we'll evaluate the current social media policy. We can talk with the town attorney about thoughts.
And he might have, our town attorney also works with Stonington, Waterford, Groton, so he might see
Good.
one from another town.
Good. And if the recommendation is that it doesn't specifically belong in the code of conduct, the code of ethics, then I would suggest expanding this policy to include behaviors that are not specifically on Facebook. If you are an appointed or elected or a town employee, you are kind of always on stage. You're always a member of that town, and you'll conduct yourself in a particular way. So I would like to see it just expanded from social media to just behaviors.
Okay. Okay, to open up to the public at
Yeah.
this point. Is there anybody in public that would like to make comment? Barbara? Could you do me a favor? I'm sorry. Could you just
Use the mic.
all right. So no one's heard that, but I'll say that you, because it's a recorded meeting.
Who's it
I
just
mean, if you're saying something negative, I'd say stay right there.
No, I'm just saying, I'm very, very grateful that you guys have taken this very seriously and that it's moving forward. I really appreciate it. I think it says a lot about our town and the three of you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The other thing I was going to mention, Nicole, is the way the code of ethics is written, isn't there, I was just talking about, like thinking about the enforcement or what you do the next step is. Isn't it written so that there's like, if you have to go that route where there's a potential violation of you assemble committee?
We started to assemble one, Barbara, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it's like, there was only 2 or 3 people that, we wanted to have a committee of 5.
Yeah.
We only had 3 people that volunteered to be appointed. We never got around to appointing because everything kind of quieted down. At the time when we wrote the code of ethics, there was a reason, similar to this.
Right.
There was an incident that happened and people were upset and it led to a writing. I wrote the code of ethics, so I know, back in 2021. So sometimes something has to happen to wake everybody up and say, wait a minute, why aren't we addressing this? So as these things, I mean, I hate to see things happen, but if something good comes out of it, as this would probably be something good.
I agree. I agree. And I think things are the way they are. They're not going to get better. We're not going to, I think what you're doing right now is the very appropriate thing to do. And I wish I could say that we're going to go back to a time when people just on their own are very kind and conscientious, or maybe refrain from saying things. You know, they can think of it as not saying, but I don't think that.
I think you're right.
Got to
That,
start somewhere though,
I
right?
know, absolutely.
and we can start with this group, but we know this goes all the way down to kindergartners, first graders, and how, and the lack of respect that you see nowadays. And it's just the world's a different place, but this is a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So much. I appreciate it.
One thing, just based on what was just said, I do think as we look at this, we might want to look at that code of ethics again, because the makeup of the board of that group, they contradicts 2 paragraphs in there. So if you read it, it says the members of shall be appointed to investigate specific charges under this ordinance and serve until their investigation is complete and the decision is rendered. But then it talks about permanent members. So part of it says we're appointing you for this one investigation, and then another part of the same
You're
code of
on
ethics
for-
says that you're on for 2 years.
So what I found with most towns that had a board is they would have 1 meeting a year unless there was a violation. And something actually, and the violation was, had to have teeth to it. I mean, you can't just stop people and start saying, well, he did something or she did something. So the first thing you did was, I think you had to go to an attorney to look at it, to say, does this hold water? And if it did, then it could go to the Code of Ethics Commission. But they met once a year, every year, just to reapply to be on the board and get reappointed and have offices. I think it was 5 members, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it does say 5 members, but the way they say they're appointed, there are 2 different ways to be appointed or reasons to be appointed.
So it's a bigger piece than what we originally thought. I think we might as well just try to clean up the whole
Right,
thing.
the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, no, completely agree. We should kind of read it word for word because it speaks to the town attorney will provide training and or written updates on the code to all governed by this code. So there's definitely some opportunities.
Okay. Any other comments on this subject? If not, we'll move along. I just wanted, on the capital balance sheet, I just wanted to let you know that, and I meant to make a copy for you, I didn't. Alexis, thank you. Mike,
This is
thank
where we
you.
lose everybody at the capital balance sheet.
I can let you know. I'm not talking long about it. You're a banker, so you should just be right up your alley. But we'll get that check ready for you in the next week or so, so you'll have plenty of time, no matter when you decide to do the power. Okay.
Thank you.
Barbara, thank you. So just let me know and I'll have it ready. They'll sign it and you can pick it up. Send me that email then. And thank you. So the good news is because now we're taking the budget that just passed, we're incorporating the capital monies that were approved by the town into the balance sheet. So we had a balance in the balance sheet before of 517,296. The balance now is 899,456. In that, and I apologize, I'll email you a copy. In that is $130,000 for the excavator. And in that is the first payment towards a rescue truck of 155, 655. I think what I want to make sure we do, and we'll talk about this in the next meeting, give you each a copy of this and say, what can we do if the tax value that pays are nice enough to give us, approve this money to be done? It shouldn't just sit here. Now I know that like the abate and demo for town building sat here for 21 years. Do you guys have copies of this? You don't have it in the packet?
Oh, I was,
Maybe she did send it to you. Anyway, we didn't abate or demo anything until we just did the cabin a couple of months ago. There's money in here for this room. There's money in here for town buildings. Like I want to get the town hall painted. There's money in here for the Ewart farmhouse. So rather than let money just sit here and not be used, I think it makes sense to do what the taxpayers allow us to do. Take the money that was approved and do something with it rather than just sitting here. So I think I want to start talking a little bit more about that over the next few months before the weather goes sour. So we can get done. If you have any ideas of, I know there's talk about the abatement and demo of the property on the corner of Wrights Road and Woodshot Hill. There's obviously work that needs to be done at the 1750 house. The town needs to be painted. There's money in here possibly to do something with the tunnel, but I think we need to start looking at this. And some money is just being put away, like we know the underground fuel storage, that's a 5-year plan. Bulky waste pile closure is a multi-year plan. So that's it. I just want to make sure we're going to start talking about this a little bit more, if that's okay, especially before we get to the capital discussions in the fall. So. Any comment on that? You guys go with that?
is there a specific reason we haven't,
It's just a matter of time and all the other things that are on the agenda. I'm meeting with Alan now on a bi-weekly basis with Suzanne just to go through we have all the projects listed. But there's that room to things that are big projects. I mean, one is like fix the lighting in the tax collector's office, to fix the drip on that's dripping into Jen's office, to fixing the tunnel, working on the steep grants, to working on the watering, taking down the tree in the buildings like road, that kind of stuff. So really, there's plenty of projects. We're lucky we have a foreman who's finds ways to say yes instead of no. We've got an excellent crew. We've got excellent assistant foreman. So now that we have these good employees, let's attack these things when we can. But some of it is just, we just don't always have time to go over it. We're constantly cutting and mowing right now and trimming and fixing. So yeah, it's always nice to get these things done, but you always have to schedule them to get them done. And I guess I want to bring at the top of mind that we have this morning. Let's start thinking about what we can do.
if we were to scrape and repaint the old town hall that we've talked about, is that something that that we would do, or we would contract that out?
I would contact that out. Because it's more to it than just repainting it. There is scraping and there may be, if they find it's like painting, there's another step to it. But doesn't mean we can't. I have an RFP that's written to do it. I just need to clean it up a bit because it was written by Sean back 10 years ago, the last time it was done. And if I have to be a little more specific now than we were then.
So are we going to put that one out?
Excuse me?
Are we going to put it out?
Right now I'm putting out the 2-story wing, the HVAC, and that's the third one. It's on my desk. That's the third one that's going to go out of those first two.
Okay.
So yes, I do want to.
Because it's starting to look a little.
Oh, it's been really rough for a while. So
The town hall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it doesn't look as rough as my chair, but I'm not getting there. So that's why I signed that we're fiscally responsible.
Not on the agenda, but I do think at some point just even that rug, it was very, I know when I'm there on the weekends, it's very musty smelling. And then the troopers'
So
air
they-
conditioner was leaking down. I think that's what it
Yeah,
was.
they didn't find it. They went up there and they didn't find it coming through the ceiling at all.
It was the
coming from-
ghost,
It was the
Nicole, that you talk about. all the
Did you
time.
get in that office, by the way? Did you find the key for that office? To get into this trooper's
Oh,
office?
I'm not going in, I'm not go, I barely go upstairs, you know that. But it was all leaking on the floor.
Yeah, actually, it was fixed today,
Okay,
but that doesn't mean we can't try to get that carpet cleaned and or replace it.
that carpet's,
It's not a big carpet, it's not a big room, so,
yeah, it is. It really probably just needs like regular
yeah,
flooring or something, not
okay.
red.
We can get it in that teal color, which will make Jim happy. Okay, so that's all. I just want to run that by you. I think we're gonna start talking about this a little bit more. Tax refunds. So there is some discussion on that. Did you see the tax refunds in the packet?
Yeah.
Because if you did, they're gonna see that.
Do you want me to make the motion first, then you discuss?
Yeah, why don't you do
All
that?
right. So I'll make a motion to approve tax refunds in the amount of $10,181.93 to totaling from Chad Sweet, Samuel Gothier, Edwards Agricultural Products LLC, Edwards Real Estate LLC.
Okay, so,
That's it. I'll second.
okay, so we have a motion and second for the, were you looking at the total of 10,188?
Yeah.
Yep, $10,181.93.
So why, right? That's the question, why? So what's happened is, and John met with the Assessment Board of Appeals, which John Gassion is on, and he proved pretty much beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's other farms in town that were getting those tax credits that he wasn't getting. And when the Board of Appeals listened to the arguments, there was no way they could argue it. That for the last 3 years, the winery was paying things that he should have had tax deferments on. He shouldn't have had to pay on it. So we went to the Board of Assessment Appeals. They approved the adjustment. It goes back for 3 years. We didn't go any farther back than that. But it's a case where, in this particular case, we had an assessor assessing it incorrectly. It was being assessed incorrectly. And only because it came to John's attention, because I was talking to another farmer and saying, how you just get your tax bill, how come you're not paying for that? Because I have to pay for that because of this law. So that's where we are. John, do you want to expound on it, or are you good with what I said so far? Since you're on the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Pretty much is exactly what you said. They get assessed wrong, and they wanted the tax credit, and they brought everything in. I mean, they had all their I's dotted and T's crossed when they came in, and by unanimous vote, we voted that he was correct.
What in particular, what things were being assessed incorrectly? Or what was he paying for that other farmers weren't?
His building itself, and he didn't get there was a certain credit he wasn't getting that all the other farmers were getting, and the one that he had spoke to showed us what he had done with his paperwork. And apparently what happened in the meeting, it was he signed the paper and he went and paid his stuff in the last day. And then this year when it came up, he brought it up and brought it to the Board of Assessment of Appeals and had documentation, what other people had done, and showed what other farms in the town were being taxed and the credit that he wasn't getting, but they were getting. So it was
I
just
know a
credits
couple of
they got,
things.
but they didn't.
A couple of things, John, where one was he was being taxed on some farm equipment, which is part of his bottling and his creating wine as office equipment. And he was also being taxed on the bond itself is not a bond because he had a tasting room in the bond. So Darrell didn't credit him as far as being a bond, even though 85% of the bond is used as a bond to create wine, and he has equipment and so on. So he was assessed incorrectly, and that's the point he proved. So both on personal property, assessed incorrectly, and the building itself was assessed incorrectly.
So even though it's also an event, there's not a percentage that you're saying, okay, this is for your event space or anything like that.
No, because there's he pointed out other properties in town where they do have occasional events and things like that that are taxed as a bond. And he wasn't, he was taxed as a business.
Okay.
Is that about right, John? Okay. So that's where we are. So we have a motion. I think we have a second. You want any other discussion on your part? It's the biggest one we've done, but I think in this particular case, I think it warrants it. I'm glad he went through the proper channels of the assessor's office and then the assessment board of appeals. So, no other discussion. We have a motion. All those in favor to approve all these tax credits, say aye.
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 Okay. I don't have any old business at this point.
So I do actually,
Really.
about vacancies and appointments.
Okay.
I wanted to discuss the tax collector, who is, I mean, sorry, not the tax collector, sorry, the assessor. And I know the position was posted. I was actually a little shocked and quite frankly disappointed that it was posted before we discussed it as a board. To me, that isn't an everyday decision to move forward with one of the highest paid employees in town, positions in town, because for at least three administrations that I can recall, it's always been up for discussion that once, and up until even some of our budget discussions this year with the Board of Finance, that once that position, the person retired, we were going to look into a part-time position or other options with other towns. So I would request that we do that before we start interviewing anyone, to really dive into that position, look at what that department should look like. Because what happens, and I've seen it multiple times, is that we say, hey, we need to do this now. We need to move forward. We'll discuss it the next time. Well, this was the time we're supposed to be discussing it. And it's on plenty of public record that this was the position as one of the top paid positions in town hall that we would discuss before moving forward with it and really dive into how we wanted that to look.
So when you say it's on plenty of public records, I don't think it was ever talked about publicly, because it would have been a violation of talking about present employees and what we do with their positions while they were still working.
We talked about the position, not about the employee.
We did talk in general that when long-term employees were in a position that when things change, we'd give it another look, and I agree with you 100%, we would do that. I've already started talking to other towns to see what our options are, to see if there's some way I can share an assessor with another town. We've done that. I even talked to the present assessor saying that the day comes that you retire, do you think that we could get by with a part-time assessor? And he said yes. So I'm not opposed to that, but I think what we're trying to do is find out what's out there. We could find out that there's no one that wants to apply. No one wants to apply for the full-time job, or if we put it out as a part-time job. So I'm trying to find out what our options are. That's all.
So if that's the case, why aren't we trying to decide that before we put out? Because so if we have all these people apply for a full-time job, we go through interview process, and then we say, hey, wait, we don't want a full-timer. It's like putting the cart before the horse. This has been a real discussion that at this salary and what we're doing and the amount of work that's there, that we were going to look at other options, whether it's having a consultant that just does it on a regular basis. So there are towns that sub that out. They don't have an assessor on staff. So I think as a board, we should be discussing that.
We actually do have a consultant coming in and starting on for every Friday starting after August 1st. So that is the case. So I understand what you're saying, but sometimes if you, like, we could do it. I mean, we can just wait another month and do all the research, and that's fine. But to me, at least if I know, what does the pool look like? What if we waited and then say, okay, we all decide we should get a full-time assessor, then there's no full-time assessor.
So I will tell you off the bat, I'm not in favor of a full-time assessor unless something dramatic happened with the amount of work that's in that office. But from, like I said, multiple administrations that dove into it, our past finance officer looked into it as well. I remember, like, that role doesn't require a full-time position.
So we have two full-timers, and I don't want to get into the point where I should be in executive session about this, but we have two full-time employees in that, two full-time positions. We have the employees. And do we know for a fact which one should be part-time and which one should be full-time?
I believe so. In my mind, we do based on what the work is and what an assessor does compared to what an assistant does. And knowing that the difference in pay scales, one wouldn't make sense to have part-time compared to the other one. And if you look at larger towns around us that don't have full-time assessors, how can we say that we can justify it? So I guess until we look at the facts, I have a hard time moving forward with an interview process.
Understood. Okay.
What is the work in the immediate future that we would be not doing or missing as we talk about what to do with the position?
So we have a consultant who does multiple towns, actually. He's coming around starting on, I don't want to bring him in until current assessor retired, which is his last day is the 31st of July. August 1st, which is a Friday. He'll start coming in on Fridays, and he's going to actually assess where we are in the assessor's office, how far behind we are. And as Brett said, we might not need any more than a consultant, but we don't know that yet. So I think the reason we posted the job is to see, is there any interest in who's out there? We've heard that there's not many candidates, there's not many people getting into assessment since we go to college for these days, tax collecting, assessment, and so on. But there may be people out there that work in someone else's assistant, or maybe someone wants to do a part-time job but not a full-time job. I know that Town has a new part-time assessor, but she doesn't want to do anything more than on a very part-time basis.
Bob and I talked at length about this also, and I do believe that if we bring in a consultant that can, we have a third-party person that can give us an assessment of that office. Someone who's knowledgeable in the field and has worked with multiple towns, so they can gauge on what our needs are. Again, I just have to remind you, this is a union position, so this isn't something we can easily change. It had a lot of conversations, but I did hear from colleagues that it is very difficult for this field. There's not a lot of people with this certification. The certification is very extensive to come in as a certified assessor, to sign off on grand lists and do all the reporting. So the pool is small, but we are lucky we are bringing this consultant in, and I'm confident that they can give us a lot of feedback that we need.
So can we wait to get some of this feedback before we move forward with?
I think we just want to put our toe in the water and see what was out there. So it doesn't mean just because we advertise the job doesn't mean we have to hold interviews or hire anyone at this point. But I want to see what kind of feedback.
So I guess then why wouldn't we put it out for a part-time position too? Or we have to go through the union first, even if we.
Well, that's the thing is we're kind of putting out because it's the union position that they have now. Don't forget, we just went to a third-party IT group, which has to go, we have to go back and talk about that again in December, I think it is. But there's a point where you say, how many people are you taking from me? And yeah, it's either way. I don't think that office needs two full-time employees, and I think it's overkill. But I think that we also know that the people that have been maintaining that office for years, we said that the institutionality can't be replaced. You don't want to force it in at the door. Long-term employees and they should go coming out on their own terms, which is what we've done to this point. I mean, we could have addressed this 6 years ago, but I just think it wasn't the right thing to do at the time. So we're still in the investigation stages of what our options are, and we'll probably know more once the consultant, who I met the other day, he works in multiple towns now, so he's able to. We used to work in Town 1 day a week and kept them afloat until they got this part-time person who works 1 or 2 days a week. I'm not sure what days she works, but that's all she wants, whatever she's got. Because I was always hoping that when maybe some guy can get a full-time assessor and say, okay, do 3 days for me and 2 days in Town, or 2 days at another municipality. And that way we can kill two birds. I now have a part-time, we pay the whole boat and the other town pays us to cover some of those wages and benefits. or he has two paychecks, or she gets two paychecks from each town, so.
Which I would be in favor of something like that, but that's why I guess I just don't understand why we don't try to figure that out before we.
This actually all happened within the last few days, Brett, to be honest with you. So the final decision, when I sent the information to you and Nicole and said, just so you know, Daryl's retiring as of the end of this month, it was pretty much decided that morning that was the way things were going to go. So it's not something that we've known for months. We've actually known for days. And I've had multiple phone calls with, well, I won't name the towns, but surrounding towns on what our possibilities are. Sometimes I know that there was nobody that was going to come in because they need a full-time assessor. And sometimes I thought that maybe they could share one. So I'm still working on that now.
Can I just clarify, is the consultant that's coming in on the 1st, is this somebody, clearly I'm hearing that it's somebody that's going to assess the department and help us figure out what the needs are. But is this somebody that also is able to do the assessing and actually do the
Yes.
work of that? Okay, so I just like the situation with the IT where I think that there were definitely things that started to fall along the wayside, things that, you know, we need to keep up. I just want to make sure that as we're talking about this, that we're covered for the things that need to get done. And it sounds like at the same time, getting some type of a report to help us understand what the next steps
So this
should
gentleman
be.
is a certified assessor. However, there's more than one job with the assessor. One part is the book part of it, you know, signing off on green list and doing the assessment for the office. The other part is actually going out into the field. And if he's working for us 1 day a week, typically he's not going to have enough time to do both. I know when we needed someone to go and do some assessing in the field, we hired a gentleman from another town, he comes from Colchester. He was able to come in on Saturdays. We gave him a list of all the building permits, and he would go out and do those, and then we paid him separately for that. So it may be a combination of a consultant and then someone that we can hire part-time to go do that. We've talked about that already because he's worked for us before, and so he said he could probably work and do that again for us. Yeah, so it might be something totally different than where we are. We're just trying to find out what we have, what our options are, that's all.
So I guess then are we under the understanding we're not hiring, we're not doing anything until we assess the situation?
I think we need to have more assessment of the assessor situation.
Okay.
Yes.
So as long as we're clear that we're not hiring anyone
I'm
until
not
we
planning on
go,
calling you and saying we're going to have a meeting on Tuesday. No.
because I will tell you, once that got posted on social media, I had about 4 messages from different people.
They want to be assessors?
No,
Oh.
that were concerned about what we've talked about over the past,
Mhm.
in the past. So it is a hot topic, so I don't want to rush it and go against everything we've talked about over the years.
Understood.
Thanks.
And I've always been in agreement with those discussions. So,
Perfect. And then one other thing on vacancies and appointments, it's the only place I can kind of fit this in. I would love to invite Trooper McCarthy to our next Board of Selectmen meeting. I was told that he is leaving us as resident trooper.
Jason?
Jason, I ran into him at the fair and he let me know.
he doesn't let us know when his last day is, but
Right, but
basically you said the end of the summer.
Yeah, I'd like to invite him and thank him for all his work
Okay, well,
at our next.
one
Is
thing
that
about that is,
common now?
and we could do that, except he gets off at like, what, 2:30, and he goes to Leggett. I could ask him if he would like to do that.
He's done amazing work for our town. Been a great resource, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Mhm. Okay. You have a look on your face.
I know. So the way the troopers work, do they work for Troop E, but then they get assigned here? Are we just getting assigned a new
Yeah, so
person?
what'll happen is when he finishes his time with the town, they'll probably ask the afternoon trooper first, Trooper Como, if he'd like to move to days. He'd probably be the first choice by the troop. to give these, because he already knows the town, he's been in town now for a couple of years, but he'd like to work days, and then depending on that answer, then the troop would have to supply us with another trooper for either days or nights, depending on what Alex wanted to do.
Do we have any input into that, or is it basically assigned?
It's basically assigned by the troop.
Well, that's a shame.
It is, but we've, if you think about the last 10 or 15 years, we've had multiple troopers, Dave Abley, Dave Green, there's been
Tom
Tommy
Baby.
Fabian, I mean, there's been troopers coming and going. We were lucky to have Jason for 7 years, basically, so.
Just the way that
He's just
Jason's,
all I know.
and just the way Jason's been involved with our school.
Yeah.
He's gone, I will say he's gone above and beyond.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he's.
And there's other troopers that have done great things. Fabian's one of them that was really
Yep.
like part of the community. And I feel like Trooper McCarthy is that person as well.
Okay, I don't disagree. I'll just see if I can, see if he wants to come back after going home for 3 hours, but, he might do it. I'll let him know that the thought was there anyway, and see if he'd like to come. Any other public comments? No? Okay. Our next meeting is going to be on August 5th. Just to give you a heads up, our second meeting in August, I will not be around. I will be around here, I'll be around the country, period. So there's a good chance I
for
won't be
you.
able to get reached. I will let all the emergency services people know that for that week, that your contact information, Nicole, and the best contact information will go to them in case you're needed for some reason. I probably can check in on email occasionally, but other than that, so there's a meeting, we have a meeting scheduled for that. So we'll have to determine on the 5th whether you guys want to have the meeting or not.
We can get so much done, Nicole.
Think about it. So, but I'll leave that up to you guys. Okay, so that's our next meeting, August 5th. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a
Motion.
motion. Go ahead.
Sorry, motion to adjourn.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.